I might just be really ageist in saying 40 is the upper age limit. It might be higher than that. So your target group is this age group and quite likely to be born in this country. They'll speak English, and aside from their Asianness, they'll also be under the general misinformation about the fire service that most of the general public is that it's about big white macho men saving lives and flying down poles, to put it flippantly. As well as general misinformation, they'll also have a very sophisticated antenna for racism and tokenism, and also maybe some degree of cynicism about positive action campaigns. We live in an environment where there's just been quite a lot of rioting in Bradford, and also, you know, bear in mind the Stephen Lawrence report and the Macpherson inquiry, and you know the recent kind of high-profile race issue cases that have come up recently. So that's the characteristic of your target group. Secondly, I mean, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but Asian women will also encounter the same barriers as all women, which is that you're not strong enough, it's not a woman's job, you're trying to be a man, or you know, a fear of taking risks as well, that you'll get burned alive. The general kind of sexism and prejudice that's prevalent in general society, but also as an Asian woman, there's the additional barriers of fear of racism being set up to fail. Another factor in both these categories, and also which points to including the whole of the Asian community, not just your target group, is about the fact that decisions in the Asian community are not generally made by isolated individuals. Asian communities tend to focus on collectivism and conformity and consensus rather than individualism, which is quite often frowned upon and creates tensions. So the 18-year-old who's making the decision about joining the fire service will be influenced by aunties, uncles, grandparents, or even neighbours, as will be women who might well be seen as being slightly freakish for wanting to undertake such a masculine job. For this reason, it's also important to make links with the general Asian community, so that firefighting becomes familiar as a career and people are more versed in what it's all about, and also less alien, and it becomes more something that Asian people do. The other factor I think might be worth also mentioning is that quite often the fire services in the home countries are very untechnological and quite often very low status and seen as manual work rather than a high status job, which will also prejudice people about the fire service in this country, and therefore that needs to be addressed as well. Some ideas for building bridges or undertaking campaigns or action to actually get up in recruitment. I've just thrown together some general ideas that I thought about. Firstly, I think it's really important to think imaginatively and be informed about the history of the local community. Equality and recruitment this way is everybody's responsibility in an organisation. It isn't just the specialist workers, because if your specialist workers is sort of shuffled off and diversity is that person's responsibility, then it is tokenism, then the organisation doesn't take it on board. Anyway, coming back to the point, some ideas I had were things like schools have work placements for Asian kids. You could open up generally in Asian areas and invite schools in to have a look what the fire service does and to look around the fire station. I'd imagine that would go down a treat with kids. In an Asian area, you could, particularly on theme days or even like International Women's Day, you could hold mock fitness tests and encourage women to come forward and have a go at this. Particularly, I'd imagine younger women would go for it, and as a way of breaking down some of their barriers. Another idea is this month will be the festival of Diwali, which is quite an important festival for Hindu people, and it's quite an interesting and pertinent example, I think, because Diwali is a festival of lights, and people generally, Hindu people, will light candles, will set off fireworks, which also has fire safety implications. So if a local fire brigade with a large Hindu population could hold an event, could actually hold a firework display, or could just disseminate information about fire safety on Diwali, that kind of thing. It's a way of acknowledging difference. Looking at the more target group, another idea is the next time some organisation like the Asian Dove Foundation, which organises events and quite trendy gigs around Asian and black cultural events, next time they hold something, get on the programme, see if you can get a mention or something on the back of a programme, and a bit of publicity that way, to your showing an awareness of different cultural things. There's just some very general ideas I've thrown together, but it's more about the approach, being that there is no formula, and being imaginative and trying to think about ways that you could get involved and make links. Finally, I think it's really important to compile a do and don't list, a checklist of things to be wary of, and it's things like making an effort to get people's names right. If you're going to add a title to somebody's name, make sure it's the correct one if you're not familiar with the name. Make it your recruitment and selection process. I think this is a general equal ops issue. Make it very, very transparent so people know exactly what they're required to do and why if they're not selected or they're not. So it's explained. The feedback is very clear. And it's done on the basis of it's done in a fair way. The other thing that you could do is might be quite helpful, is to include Asian people on the selection panel, so that it will kind of relieve some fear. I think at the end of it there is no formula. If there was a formula, the government would have handed it over and said, do this and you'll get equal opportunities. So what that points to is more of a process, and that will apply to recruitment and selection of Asian people. Keep trying different methods and reviewing progress. Be willing to learn from your mistakes, and really try and start from the perspective of an Asian person coming to you, rather than the other way around. Try and think in their shoes. Thank you.